Pol Pot's regime has a lasting effect on the people of Cambodia, which is why it must be known worldwide and to never be forgotten. To understand the origins of Khmer Rouge, you need to know a bit of Cambodia's history. After almost 100 years of French rule, on November 9, 1953, internal revolts resulted in independence and the return of King Norodom Sihanouk from exile to lead the country. The escalating Cold War was challenging the area to choose between the Communist China and Russia or democratic Western countries. Cambodia, along with other small countries, declared itself non-aligned. However, in 1954, Vietnam split into a communist North and a pro-Western South. Both the US and communist superpowers saw Cambodia as an opportunity. The king leaned towards the US for support in the beginning, but that would not last for long. The Communist Party of Kampuchea, led by Salazar aka Pol Pot, began in 1960. A movement that would be known as the Khmer Rouge or Red Khmers was inspired by Mao Zedong's teachings. In 1965, Sihanouk ended relations with the United States. Although he did not trust Vietnam, he made the relationship with the communist North Vietnam stronger. In March 1969, extensive carpet bombs were secretly ordered by US President Nixon to disrupt lines to the North Vietnamese. The bombs also caused fear and anger, giving the Khmer Rouge the opportunity to gain more support of the Cambodian people. In March 1970, Sihanouk was overthrown from power and joined the Khmer Rouge and urged all Cambodians to seek their cause. War soon swept over the country. South Vietnam and the US entered Cambodia in 1970 to fight the communist safe havens, while North Vietnam helped claim land for the Khmer Rouge. Soon after, the US would pull its troops from Cambodia, but would still send extensive aid to Cambodia's pro-Western leader Lon Nol. In total, more than 2.7 million tons of bombs were dropped by American warplanes between 1969 and 1973. More than 113,000 sites were hit in Cambodia, and more than 2 million people fled to Phnom Penh and other cities to escape the bombing, fighting, and communist rule. Approximately 1 million people were killed either directly or indirectly as a result of these bombings. Between 1970 and 1975, the Khmer Rouge would gain more territory and more support. Eventually, North Vietnam would leave Cambodia and the Khmer Rouge would find more support from China. The support from the US and the pro-Western government would stop, and on April 12, 1975, America removed its last diplomats from Phnom Penh. Cambodia was on its own. On April 17, 1975, just 5 short days after America left the capital of Cambodia, Khmer Rouge entered the city victorious. Some celebrated because this meant the end of the war, but it was short-lived because immediately the Khmer Rouge started to implement Year Zero. Year Zero was Pol Pot's version of extremist communism. Schools were closed, religion was banned, every one of the 2 million people living in Phnom Penh were ordered to leave the capital city. The old, the sick, the young, everyone. They were all being sent to labor camps where they would spend the next 3 years, 8 months, and 20 days from dawn until dusk farming. Thousands of people died during the long march to the camps. Sadly, this was just the beginning. Pol Pot ordered the killings of all civil servants, police, military officers, doctors, teachers, the educated, Buddhist monks. People were executed simply for wearing glasses because they were a symbol of wealth and education. Anyone that was quote-unquote contaminated by the Western ideals, such as actors or singers, were also killed. If the Khmer Rouge saw you as a threat, you were murdered. Quote, "To keep you is no gain, to lose you is no loss." Quote. No one was spared. Entire families were executed. Mass graves were used to dispose of the bodies. Men, women, children, even babies. Quote, "To kill the grass, you must also remove the roots." Quote. Not all people died as a result of execution. Estimates between 500,000 to 1.5 million people died of starvation, and many died of curable illnesses. All of this death and suffering in an effort to fulfill a 4-year plan to create a collectible society. They had an impossible task of growing 3 tons of rice per hectare annually. Impossible because the country had never harvested so much rice, and there were few tools and a workforce that did not know what they were doing. Their goal was to become completely independent in all areas. But with no education and no way to meet the rice production quota, this plan was destined for failure. Child soldiers were trained to kill the Vietnamese and lay millions of landmines, creating even more death and future problems for the Cambodian people. All of this happened with no interference from the outside world. On January 7, 1979, Vietnam entered Phnom Penh, ending the Khmer Rouge era and beginning a 10-year occupation. What they found shocked the world. Mass graves, prisons with evidence of torture and murder, abandoned cities, and nearly 2.5 million people on the verge of starvation. The Khmer Rouge was forced west to the Thai border, and Vietnam formed a new government for Cambodia comprised of Khmer Rouge defectors and Cambodian sympathizers. However, the West did not recognize this new government and still acknowledged the Khmer Rouge as ruling party of Cambodia. Because of this, the West refused to send aid to help the humanitarian crisis. They felt that any support of the new government was showing support for Vietnam. With Pol Pot still leading the Chinese-backed Khmer Rouge, a civil war continued with the newly formed government backed by Vietnam. It was not until the Soviet Union started to collapse in 1989 that Vietnam pulled out of Cambodia, and the warring factions finally reached a peace deal in 1991. However, both sides only signed the Paris Agreement because of international pressure. No solution was made, and both sides still wanted total power over the country. Cambodia had a UN-supervised election in 1993, and Sihanouk again became king, and soon regained the support of the West. But peace did not last. Slowly, over the years, as the relationship with the West grew stronger and Pol Pot's Khmer Rouge grew weaker, the end was near. Shortly after Pol Pot's death, the Khmer Rouge was finally disbanded in 1999. In total, approximately 3 million to 4 million lives were lost between 1968 and 1979. After the years of French rule, civil wars, extensive bombings, political turmoil, and the Khmer Rouge, Cambodia people have proven themselves to be survivors and slowly put their lives back together.